Good morning, Jello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about handheld radios and how to use the one that you've purchased. All right. So before we talk about the radio, we got to sort of talk about two modes of operating on VHF. And the first mode we're going to talk about is called simplex. And we learned in class is that simplex is where you typically have one handheld talking to another handheld. And we use the word simplex, meaning single, is that we transmit on a frequency. And in our case, let's say it's 146.52 megahertz. So we will transmit on that. We will also receive on that frequency. So it's a single frequency called simplex. And when we talk from one handheld to the other, because we have low power and low antennas, our typical range is about 1 mile. All right, and hams always want to stretch the envelope, so we've developed another mode which we call duplex. And you may have a hint that duplex means two or double. So typically the way we work that is that we take a handheld. It's typically 5 or 6 feet off the ground, and we talk to a repeater station that's located several hundred feet in elevation. And as the word implies, duplex is we will use two frequencies. So we will transmit out on a frequency, let's say 146.82 megahertz. And we will receive on a frequency of 146.22 megahertz. And we have learned that the difference between these two frequencies we call the offset frequency. And by tradition, on 2 meters, that offset frequency is 600 kilohertz. So this kind of review, the two modes that we talk is one called simplex and the second is called duplex. And we use duplex to talk through repeaters. And in this area of the country, when we talk through repeaters, we normally can talk out about 40 miles. If you get out west where the repeaters are high on mountains, that can go out to hundreds of miles. Okay, now let's start into the radio operation. So let me wipe that out. So now let's start talking about the radio. Let's start locating a few of the important buttons. Notice there's lots of buttons on this radio. So the most important button, I guess, is the on-off button. So this is how you turn this thing on. This is the on-off. And the volume. So once you rotate this thing to the right, you turn it on, you increasingly turn it to the right, the volume gets louder and louder. The next button that I want to talk about is the PTT, or push to talk button. And this just describes is when you want to talk, you push this button. We call this the PTT button. One of the other important buttons is the menu button. That's this orange button right here. Most of these buttons have dual functions, and this button, there's 38 menu settings on here, and because there's so many, you have to refer to the manual. And I want to introduce to you a new term perhaps, and you will hear this a lot as you go through life. It's called RFM. It's a very nasty word or acronym. Read the frickin' manual. Now this mighty fine manual is written in a mighty fine language called Jinglish, which is a combination of Chinese and English. And because our Chinese friends haven't exactly mastered the written English language, you will find some new and strange phrases in this book. So let's continue on. These buttons here are the selection buttons, the up and down. So when you depress the menu button, you can scroll. This thing scrolls up and down, and it will select memory buttons. This radio also is a dual band radio, which means you can listen to two bands at once, and these bands are depicted in these numbers over here. This is the A side of the radio, and this is the B side of the radio. And you can select which side you want to work on by first pushing down the function button and then quickly pushing down this button, and this will switch you from the A to the B. So now we have described a few of the buttons on the radio. We're going to leave it to you to read the manual to learn about how to use all the other buttons. So now let's talk about two basic modes of this radio. One is I depict as the direct entry mode. Where when you're in this mode, you can directly enter the frequencies and the data by depressing these buttons down here. The other mode is the memory mode, and here's where we first start in the direct mode, or we get a programming cable and we program in all the functions and we store them in memory locations. And when we're in the memory mode, you can select which channel you want by depressing either the up or down button and scroll through the different channels. Now, here's where it's a little tricky, is how do you get into the modes, either the memory or the direct mode? Well, the first thing you do is you turn the radio off. And then you depress the menu button and hold the menu button down and then you will turn the radio on, while keeping the memory button depressed for 3 or 4 seconds. When you do this, you will toggle between the direct and the memory mode. Now let's go through a few other functions, and to do this, I want to show you what we have programmed in the memory channels. So let me scroll to that. Let's see, let me find it. Here we go. Alright, let me get my mouse clicker going again. Okay, we talked about the channels. Okay, so the channels, the first thing we do is we select a memory location, and you have, I believe, 0 to 300 channels that you can pre-program in this thing. And I have already programmed in about 20-something plus channels. So the first thing we do is we put the channel number in here, and then we select the band. And for hams in this radio, we have 2 bands: VHF band, very high frequency band, and UHF 1. Now the next thing we want to program in is the frequency. Alright, and so we program in the frequency, and because we want to work this on the repeater, notice that the receive frequency is different from the transmit frequency. Now, one of the other important characteristics is we got to jog our memory of what we do. So I've tried in this thing to make the screen come up with some letters and numbers that somehow or another prompt your memory as to what we're trying to put in here. Now in Lafayette we have several repeaters. So I have put the location designator LFT, and then I've put the ending frequency of the repeater. So in the first channel in your radio is LFT 82, which which means Lafayette 14682. So we have several repeaters in Lafayette. We have an 04 repeater. It's unfortunate this is down for repairs, but we also have two UHF repeaters called LFT32, which is on a frequency of 443.200 megahertz. So just to kind of scroll through here and show you what I'm trying to communicate to you, this repeater is in Lydia, and it's a pretty wide area repeater, and you should be able to hear that in most places in Lafayette. We have repeaters in Abbeville, which are very low performance repeaters, and you have to be probably within 10 miles of Abbeville to hear it. We have a repeater in New Iberia. We have a repeater in Lake Charles, and early in the morning you may hear this one. We also have repeaters in Baton Rouge. Early in the mornings you may hear this one. This is Franklin. This is Morgan City. This is New Orleans. I have an APRS frequency in here. We've talked about that in classes that hams also report their positions, and if you hook this to your computer with some special software, you can have a map and the hams tell you where they are. This is kind of an interesting frequency. This is ISSV, or the International Space Station. So you can, if you know when the space station is overhead and they're talking on the radio, you can hear the space station. I have a few other frequencies in here. Let's see, there's also a frequency in here, this KSC. This is kind of a special frequency that I've put in all the radios for the young hams coming through, and I call this the kids' secret channel. So if you're close to each other and you don't want your voice to get broadcast in wide circles, you can get on this thing. This is a simplex frequency, and I call this the kids' secret frequency. So this is it for this video. I will do another video shortly that shows you how to the etiquette, computer etiquette. So till next time, guys, start playing with your radios.